as everyone sends in their taxes, it really underscores the burden that our taxes put on our economy. I'm running on a simple flat tax where every American, every one of us, we can fill out our taxes on a postcard. And then, as you noted, we're going to abolish the IRS.
We're going to cut the individual rates from 7 brackets to 4. Simplification. 25%, 20%, 10%, and 0.
Well, I'm for lowering the income taxes nationally. I'd like to have a 28, a 25, and a 10% rate because you probably pay through, on your personal taxes, you have a pass-through corporation. So we need to bring the taxes down and to help small businesses.
Well, it's tax day, and Americans paid roughly about $5 trillion in taxes, federal, state, and local taxes. On the federal side, the highest in 10 years, $3.3 trillion. What about tax reform? We're back with the panel. Nina, there's a lot of talk. You heard the Republicans there about reforming tax reform. Taxes overall, is it realistic?
Well, it's hard because there's always losers in tax reform. You take away deductions, for example. If you're going to simplify, you take away home mortgage deductions, charity deductions, and people scream. It's a difficult road to hoe. But we have a tax system that is, A, way too complex, rates way too high, and by the way, it taxes income and investment and not consumption. It is not good for economic growth. The other interesting thing that came out today was Bernie Sanders releasing his taxes. He made $200,000 and he only paid 13.5%, which is less than the average at that income level. But here's the other important thing. All those millionaires and billionaires that he loves to attack paid twice as much, a twice amount higher rate, just to the IRS. We're not even talking about state taxes. But those millionaires and billionaires are paying more like 27.5% versus his 13%.
Mark.
You know, there used to be a bipartisan consensus about what tax reform would look like. It would lower rates, it would either get rid of a lot of deductions or cap deductions, and it could potentially, depending on the deal, generate some revenue for infrastructure or not. And that was out there for many, many years, and that consensus seems to being ignored right now, or it's been completely obliterated.
Well, there is consensus on Capitol Hill about the corporate tax rate,
yes,
but they can't get together with
they can't get together with the individual.
Charles.
Look, Obama's the one who appointed the commission, Simpson Bowles, that recommended exactly that. That everybody, and that was the great success of what Reagan and Tip O'Neill did in 1986. I mean, it's not only obvious, but it's the holy grail of social policy, because it's the one time, one of the rare times where it meets the goals of the left and the right. It's a fairness thing, which the left always is looking for, because it's the rich who can afford the lawyers and the lobbyists who impose the loopholes and then who are able to find them. On the other hand, for the right, it promotes economic efficiency. Every tax loophole, every deduction is a barnacle that slows down economic efficiency because people make decisions for reasons of taxes and not economic efficiency. So it is the perfect legislation, but it needs leadership. You've got to have a president who campaigns on it, insists on it, and with people like Paul Ryan running the House, it could be done. It's not impossible, all right, but it is without a president. And Obama ignored his commission.
Let's look at the top 2 candidates at in each party about what the main points on tax reform. Donald Trump says he wants to consolidate the current 7 brackets into 4. You just heard him, with the top marginal rate of 25%, tax long-term capital gains and qualified dividends at a top marginal rate of 20%, creates a substantial 0 bracket for lower income individuals, lowers the top corporate tax rate to 15%. Ted Cruz has a 10% flat tax on individual income, replaces the corporate income tax and all payroll taxes with a 16% business transfer tax, repeals a number of complex features of the current tax code, lowers the rate on capital gains and dividends to 10%. Interesting?
Well, I mean, they're a continuation, I think, of a Republican line of thinking that, again, the tax code is too simple, rates need to be reduced, but also combined with that there's $2 trillion sitting overseas from companies that won't bring it here because of the high corporate tax rate. So I think there is a real sense that something has to be done about that. And I think they both captured that. Donald Trump, by the way, has been critical of hedge funds and so forth on the tax rate. This is where the economic populism of him starts to show. He's been very critical of the level of taxes that are paid by the very wealthy hedge fund owners.
Look, what you hear from the GOP is cutting the taxes left and right. That's wonderful. But the other half of that, everybody understands what loopholes are you going to eliminate. The reason nobody talks about it is because, as Mara says, they are all popular. The mortgage interest, charitable, the employer-provided health care. Unless you cut the big loopholes, you're not going to get anywhere with tax reform, except to create a huge deficit in the budget.
Which was Simpson Bowles.
Yeah, or cap it across the board, so you're not taking aim at anybody's favorite tax deduction, you're just capping it, and then you don't have to have a fight with the mortgage interest.
You never hear from a candidate, and if you don't run on it, you'll never enact it.